Hello and welcome to Strategic Impact Advisor and USAID's presentation of Hey Sisters, Show Me the Mobile Money, a women's digital financial literacy campaign we've been running since 2020. We're excited you've joined this session, and we're going to have a conversation to tell you a little bit about the campaign and also hear from our funding partner, USAID, about why they invested in the work and what they're seeing as success and what their hopes are for the future. I'm Shelley Spencer from Strategic Impact Advisors. We're the implementing partners for this program, and I'm so thrilled to have Wisdom Alawersi with me, who is my colleague and a member of our senior leadership team and runs our Africa work. So Wisdom, welcome. And then also we're going to be joined by our funding partner, USAID, represented by Gwen Schneider, who's a Women's Economic Empowerment Advisor at the GenDev Hub at USAID, as well as Diana Bocheva-Guli, who's a Senior Digital Financial Advisor in USAID's Innovation, Technology, and Research Hub. So our plan for the next 30 minutes is we're going to walk you through a little bit about the campaign that you can also find on our website, www.siaedge.com, where you can download all the content that we'll be discussing. And then just really go into some of the questions that we hope you will find helpful in taking on this work and advancing women's financial inclusion. So with that, Wisdom, I wanted to start with you and ask you to give a little backdrop about what Hey Sister is and how that content is made available. Wisdom?
Thank you very much, Shelley. I'm so excited to be here. So when we talk about Hey Sister Digital Financial Literacy, it is actually 25 audio-based dramatized campaign that uses women voices to increase digital financial literacy and decision-making skills of women. The campaign actually empowers women with information to effectively use mobile money to economically improve their lives. One thing that is very critical about this campaign is that it is actually available in 16 local languages in Ghana, Malawi, Uganda, and recently in Kenya and then Tanzania in Swahili and Kenya-Rwanda dialects. The lessons, I would say, cover topics such as information on mobile money topics, transactions, loan savings, insurance, budgeting, avoidance of scam, and most importantly, tips for smartphone usage and entrepreneurship business growth. Thank you very much, Shelley.
Great, thanks Wisdom for that overview. Just a couple of things too that stand out to me in how we designed the campaign. We really thought hard about the technology we chose, and we did choose audio. And it's not necessarily the bells and whistles of a chat bot or an app. Can you speak a little bit to why our team decided that audio was the best delivery channel for the content?
Great question, Shelley. One thing that is very important with the design for Strategic Impact Advisors is that, before we launch out, we actually did a couple of research to understand what sort of product that are in the market. And we actually came out and adopted the voices of 3 women characters from Women and Money Research by ideal.org with different level of familiarities and knowledge with the digital financial services. We realized that most of them can do this through mobile money. And we also added Lily, who is actually a tech survey daughter of Miriam, one of our characters. The lessons are actually bite-sized, dramatized, and quite engaging, which really enhances comprehension of users. And I would say that our target participants for the program really cut across low-income earners, less numerate women who are basically in the peri-urban and rural areas of Africa. Thank you, Shelley.
Thanks, Wisdom. Yeah, I love listening to the lessons and I love hearing the voices. And I think it's really great because we had recording studios use actors. So you really feel like you're sitting in the same circle with our sisters. So I'm really proud of this work. And I think it resonates with people as well. So now we're going to go a little deeper with Hey Sister, and we're going to talk to our funding partners at USAID about why they thought this was important and what we've learned and where we might be going next with Hey Sister content. So I'm pleased to welcome Gwen and Diana to the microphones, and we're going to start, Gwen, with you, since you work in the GenDev Hub at USAID and you were the primary funder of this project. I wanted to ask, why did USAID decide to fund women's digital financial literacy and how you see it connected to women's economic empowerment? Over to you, Gwen.
Thanks, Shelley. It's great to be here, and thank you for giving USAID and the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Hub the opportunity to talk about why we do think financial literacy is important, and also the Hey Sister activity that we funded. Digital financial services offers enormous potential to deepen the level of access that women have to finance and create new opportunities to improve livelihoods by improving flexibility, security, and privacy of transactions. And mobile money helps women transfer funds, pay bills, and pay for goods and services from their home. By offering quick and affordable transfers, digital financial services can help women expand their support networks beyond their immediate community. However, the COVID-19 pandemic, it's interesting, it has amplified the benefits of expanding digital financial services because it significantly reduces the need for women's mobility as well as physical contact in retail and financial transactions. Digital financial services also helps governments respond more quickly to the liquidity needs of businesses, including those owned by women and their household and individual needs. And lastly, digital financial services can also make financial information available to service providers, thus providing help to eliminate biases against women as potential borrowers and improve their access to finance. So all of these things increase women's power and control over her own economic resources. And this is really great for women. But digital financial services can also have unintended negative consequences for women. Digital financial services creates a data trail that can result in data privacy concerns, unauthorized disclosures, misuse of personal data, hidden fees, and discrimination against women and others. And unequal access to technology like the ownership of cell phones and digital literacy contributes to a gender digital divide that excludes women. So in reaching large numbers of women in developing countries, like Africa and South Asia, et cetera, who were not previously served through digital financial services, can expose these women to predatory lending and over-indebtedness. So the ability to access digital financial services can make women more vulnerable to scams and really in other programs that seek to take advantage of them. So USAID's GenDev's hub funded Hey Sister, Show Me the Mobile Money, to improve women's digital literacy by both showing women the benefits of digital financial services and also the risks, so that women who listened to the conversations between Annette, Josephine, Miriam, and Miriam's daughter Lily would have the knowledge needed to make informed decisions related to digital financial services for themselves and their families.
Great. Thanks. And Deanna, you sit in the Innovation, Technology, and Research Hub at USAID, and that group has been working for over a decade to advance digital financial inclusion and mobile money, and we're still working on that. So can you tell us, in addition to Gwen's gender lens perspective, why you thought for the DFS team that it was important to fund this work?
Hi, Shelley. Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me here today. Digital financial literacy is really just one sliver of broader system barriers, and women face many barriers to digital financial inclusion, and we group them under 4 general categories. We have affordability, availability, ability, and appetite. And one of the biggest barriers to adoption and usage of financial services and digital financial services is the lack of digital and financial literacy, which falls under the ability barrier. And although digital and financial literacy helps with adoption of usage of financial services, and thus helps increasing the financial services providers' revenue, because digital financial literacy usually targets lower income populations, providers don't really feel like they should invest in this because they don't really see the return on investment. And that's why I believe that for the time being, digital and financial literacy is really the responsibility of the public sector. USAID launched its digital strategy in 2020, and one of the work streams is actually digital literacy. And of course, we have various programs in digital and financial literacy within USAID. And one of them is Hey Sister. USAID stepped in to support the design of this open source curriculum that can be used by any financial services provider and other organizations. And I would really like to stress the open source curriculum because we don't believe in digital literacy for the sake of it. We want the program to be linked to an actual product or service so that the customers can see an immediate benefit and really test their new skills, which then ensures that we see results.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm reminded, Wisdom, that in the beginning of the program, one of the things in our scope of work as the implementing partner was to look at what had been done by others. And one of the things we were hoping to do with this campaign, because it's open source, as you say, is really to build an example for replication and others to use it. So we don't take, obviously, because it's USAID funded and also it's our company's philosophy, we don't take a proprietary approach to this curriculum or the design. So I'm wondering, Diana, can you tell us what potential does USAID see for replication of Hey Sister and other projects, its funds?
Of course, yep. So what I really love about Hey Sister is that the lessons do really fit women's needs. They meet them where women are. So the lessons are short, they're about 3 minutes maximum, and that fits with women being time poor. Women can listen the lessons on their own device at their own convenience, because women have limited mobility, so they can do this wherever suits them. Also, the lessons are audio, because women tend to be less literate than men. And then those lessons could also be facilitated by an individual, like a microfinance institution loan officer, for example, because women do prefer having access to an individual, prefer the human touch, especially at first when they're interacting with a new digital service. Also, the curriculum is open source, as we already mentioned, and it's in several languages, and it can be picked up by really any provider, financial services provider, and customized to their own products and services if necessary, and they can see results immediately. Hey Sister is a digital financial literacy curriculum, so it's actually not governed by any regulation, and it can be very easily replicated and taken to different markets. In short, Hey Sister fits women's needs, FSP's needs, and there is no cost, there are no regulatory barriers, so it's really as replicable as it gets.
One of the things I think that's frustrating is that it's 2021 and we're still talking about the digital gender divide. So it seems like we should have figured out how to close this gap by now, but every year when we get the Findex or we get the GSMA Women's Connect report, it still shows a gap in women's digital inclusion. So I wondered if you could both speak to what are you seeing at USAID is working to reduce the digital gender divide, what's working well and what's challenging. And then as we spoke about, providers like MTN, Ghana can take this up, and other private sector players who are interested in women's financial inclusion, whether they're a garment manufacturer who wants to pay salaries, for example, as in happening in Asia, or they're a provider like MTN or some of the other banks that might be using digital financial services to go to the last mile. So could you speak to kind of what you've seen in terms of what's working to close the digital gender divide, and then what you're seeing, and are you optimistic about the private sector picking this up and engagement?
Of course, yeah, we have seen an increased interest in women's economic empowerment and gender equality, and thus funding in the past 5-6 years, as Shelley was saying, and we also have renewed commitment from the current administration to women's economic empowerment. So the time is now to close the gender gap. We use 4 tools or levers to bring about change. by influencing and supporting, number one, gender lens investment, two, gender balanced workforce, three, policy and advocacy, and four, gender intentional products and infrastructure. We've seen positive results from all of these, really. And for example, more gender diverse companies build more gender intentional products. And these are intervention areas that we know work. There are several considerations to have in mind when designing digital products for women, for example. They have to be close to her, have a human touch, meet her needs where she is. They have to speak her language, be convenient and private to address those barriers that I mentioned earlier. And we know that those work as well. But it's always been challenging to demonstrate the business case to serve low-income women. And although the private sector, especially financial services providers, see the market opportunity in better serving women, they have so many competing priorities between complying with new regulation, know your customer compliance, financing SME, enterprises, mandates, digitization. It's really challenging to get them to focus and dedicate resources to the women's market. So that's why donors like USAID are so important to provide impetus and incentives for the private sector to really invest in women, whether that's through funding, technical assistance, or even open source materials like Hey Sister and software. And we are absolutely optimistic about private sector engagement to reduce the digital gender divide. And there is really no way around it.
Great, thanks, Gwen. I know you do a lot of work on private sector engagement in your career and in your role at USAID and the GenDev Hub. How do you see private sector engagement growing, and particularly in areas that we've been talking about and targeting with Hey Sister?
No, that's a great question. Thanks, Shelley. The World Economic Forum's 2021 Gender Gap report estimates that it will take 267 years right now to close the economic opportunity gap for women. And so that's not my generation or your generation. That's hopefully maybe my grandchildren's generation or their children. And so USAID recognizes that this is simply too long and that it must collaborate with the private sector on activities that both further USAID's development objectives and also expand the private sector's operations, improve the efficiency of its global supply chains, and increase its overall profitability. USAID is very optimistic about private sector engagement to reduce the gender digital divide because the private sector is a powerful partner in advancing gender equality in technology, digital inclusion, and connectivity, and a catalytic source for increasing women's access to technology. It can partner with USAID to better understand restrictive social norms and structural inequalities that contribute to the gender digital divide, and then collaborate on the design and implementation of activities with a do no harm approach that really seeks to improve women's access to technology while limiting or preventing unintended negative effects, such as gender-based violence.
Thanks, Gwen, and thanks, Diana, and really gratitude to USAID for picking up the mantle for funding here. As you mentioned, who owns financial literacy is a hard sell, and without donors like USAID, Hey Sister wouldn't exist. And we're seeing from our data a high resonance of relevance for women. And I think also the power that you have given us with funding to articulate the lessons through women's voices is also a measure of empowerment. And then I would just echo, Gwen, your comment about do no harm. When we structured the program, one of the goals was really to build women's capacity to make decisions around using these tools. It wasn't to drive product use. It wasn't to get to certain transaction numbers. It was really to empower them and to give them agency about how these services work, how they can use them if they choose to better their lives. So we're truly grateful. And although we're at our 1-year anniversary of the program, and the program technically is going to shut down in a few months, the content's not going anywhere. So we hope that people will continue to replicate on it, use it as open source, and that we will see Hey Sister continue until we close the gap, and hopefully before my grandchildren go to college. So with that, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. And again, thank you for being such great partners on this program. So Wisdom, Deanna has talked about replication, and I know our approach has not just been to release the audio lessons and hope people listen. We're also super engaged, and you've been leading our work in getting local partners in the 3 countries that we're most active in, Ghana, Uganda, and Malawi. Can you talk about how we've used local partners and what value they've seen in the content?
Great. In terms of, local partnership, for us at Strategic Impact Advisors, we believe that partnership is the bloodline for sustainability of this initiative. So in each country, SIA actually partnered with local organizations who are either promoting through organized facilitator discussion groups or integrated it into their curriculums or platforms and then programs. And I would say that trainings were actually done by local partners or community champions in smaller groups, okay, during existing localized meeting sessions, community-based savings meetings, evening family gathering. And partnership as well also considered the organizations that could also promote this at a larger perspective. So the likes of MTN Ghana, Blue Town, Grameen Foundation, 1 Acre Fund. So what we did as SIA to really make a pitch to these organizations, basically around how they could adapt it to really sell their products and services. And truly, I would say that we have been quite successful with these organizations, and they are currently having them on their platform. And not only for the very big organization, we do have one microfinance institution in Ghana, known as Jire Microfinance, which is actually a local partner. Aside organizing discussion sessions for their microfinance clients, they've also created audio versions out of the content that we have, and they are currently hosting that on their websites, and they are also distributing this through their WhatsApp channels and as well as Facebook platforms, which for us, we think is quite sustainable because they want to be quite innovative about disseminating the information. So basically, when we talk about partnership, I would say that that is one of the ways that we've been able to make great traction in the market.
Great, thanks, Wisdom. And as Deanna has pointed out, it is open source. And so we've done that not only by making the recordings available, but also you can find on our website the scripts. So if you're in a country that we don't have recordings for, you can take those scripts, you can modify them, you can make them contextual to where you're working. And then I think we also have facilitation support documents. So have you seen people, we have a facilitator's guide, I think, for each country, right, Wisdom? And have you seen people using that? And how would you suggest someone who's new looking to pick up Hey Sister, what would you suggest they start with?
All right, so in terms of facilitation at the local level, to be honest with you, we have actually enjoyed some great partnerships with our local partners on the ground, basically around using the facilitators guide that we have actually produced. We also have facilitators audios, which basically are used to prepare facilitators and local champions prior to the meetings and trainings for their participants on the ground. And partners have actually alluded that they've been very great tools for people to use, especially when it comes to disseminating audio-based training materials to people in the bottom of the pyramid. And for us as SIA, we are currently hosting that content on our websites, which is free for all to download, adapt, and then be able to use in their local setting, regardless of which country you find yourself in. So for us, we truly believe that open source digital financial literacy content is basically the way to go to make sure that we are closing up the digital divide gaps.
Great.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thanks, Wisdom. And I know one of the private sector partnerships that's really worked well was MTN Ghana for us. So they have taken that content, as some others have, and put it on their own system and are using it and distributing it through their own service. Can you speak a little bit to the model that MTN used to adapt or take in content?
Sure, why not, Shelley? I think personally, I would say that this is one of the biggest successes that I have chalked, and I'm quite fulfilled with this partnership. Why? Because, I mean, as strategic impact advisors, our funding ends in December. And for us, we were actually looking forward to have private sector player engagements in this particular partnership. And truly, we've been able to have a pitch to the MTN leadership team, okay, that we were able to sort partnership buy-ins from them to literally host the Hey Sister contents on their MTN mobile money platform for free. And to be honest with you, this is a product which is actually free for almost 23 million subscribers in Ghana, which for me, I think is quite tremendous. And one thing that MTN said clearly to me, which fascinates me to some extent, is that these particular content, educational lessons, serve as a strong catalyst to actually, train people who can call in and be able to listen to the content for free. And it serves as a guide for them to be able to use MTN transactional use cases, basically around transactions such as sending and receiving of money, accessing digital savings products, and then be able to pay their bills. So for MTN, they see it as a very great opportunity to host the content so that you'll be able to propel their subscribers to be able to use MTN platform and their product in larger perspective. Thank you, Shelley.
Yeah, big win. And thanks, Wisdom, for your leadership on that and making that happen. It's really exciting to see, especially because MTN Ghana has such a large market share in Ghana. So super excited about that. Finally, Deanna's talked about how do we close the gender digital divide, what works. What are we seeing? I mean, we're excited about the campaign. We were pleased to be able to create it and distribute it. But what are we actually seeing in terms of how it's being used, and what is the data showing us on impact?
Wow, this is also a great question, Shelley. And I mean, every program certainly looks at the impacts, okay, over a period of time. And I would say that since last year, October, it's just a year we launched this. And I mean, we should be having a 1 year celebration, Shelley. And when you look at the impacts, it will facilitate you to know that we do have about 190,000 calls that have been recorded through the IVR platform, which is quite tremendous. And out of that, we do have about 130,000 unique callers, for which about 75 to 80% were actually women. Okay, so it even tells you that men found this particular content very useful, and they are also listening, and they are even serving as a strong catalyst to get other men to also listen. And another, impact I'd like to speak about is the diverse countries we have reached so far. For us as SIA, we started off with Ghana, Malawi, and Uganda. And interestingly, we have actually developed interest in Tanzania and Kenya as well. So far, we do have the content available in 16 languages, okay, including French and then Swahili, which is very great. And one thing also to say, which is the third point for me, Shelley, is that we have actually we've actually got about increased awareness and confidence of women to using digital financial services, which is also great. Well, there were key action taken by women, basically after participating in various training sessions during the organized group discussions. And some have actually activated mobile money accounts, which is very tremendous. One partner in Ghana said to me that Wisdom, we've been able to train close to about 5,000 people, but out of that, about 4,000 of them have actually registered mobile money accounts, which is quite tremendous, okay? And most of our local partners in these three countries have also alluded that their customers are currently subscribing to savings products, and they are also using digital savings product as well. And they are very knowledgeable as well, quite right? And last but not the least, there have been a rapid DFS knowledge transfer over the past 1 year in these three countries that we are working in. And interestingly, some of the women highlighted to have acquired in-depth knowledge about DFS, security, avoidance of scam and fraud, thereby not giving out to become prey to fraud and scam, which really comes with mobile money in most of the developing countries. So for us at SIA, we are excited with this progress, and we are excited with the sort of partners that we have who have decided to continue to use this content even beyond December, right? And for people to also visit the website to be able to adapt the content to meet their local setting. So basically, that is all I have to say, Shirley. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Wisdom. And one of the data points that stands out for me is the relevance. When we asked women, do you find that the content is relevant? We got over a 95% yes. So that was very validating that our design and our intentionality about how we do that was working and people found it helpful. The final point I would like to make, Gwen raised the do no harm principle for women. And when we structured the campaign, we include lessons, as you point out, Wisdom, on how to protect yourself. So the goal of the campaign is really to empower women to evaluate the services, be able to use them safely, and do it in a way that can improve their lives. So I'm proud that we're able to do that. And we have the match of lessons. Among the 25 lessons, we encourage people to go and browse those lessons. You can download them individually. They run, as Wisdom said, from the very basic, how do I open mobile money, to how do I use digital loans. So we hope we've covered a lot of things that people are thinking about in terms of how do they understand these new products. And it's exciting. We're excited to see what continues. And as Wisdom pointed out, even though the USAID funded portion of the project is ending, we as a firm are committed to continuing to make the content available, and hope that after this podcast, you'll go and look at it and use it and let us know what you think. So thanks, Wisdom. Thanks, Deanna. Thanks, Gwen, for joining us for this conversation. And we're excited to be a part of Financial Inclusion Week. Thanks to the Center for Financial Inclusion at Acción. And we hope to hear more about how people are using Hey Sisters, Show Me the Mobile Money, and that the lives and voices of these sisters continue to resonate.